junior doctor has written anonymously a book in stitches, which suggests that in his experience at least, there is sometimes pressure to fiddle the figures just to avoid breaching the targets. We use an actor to read his words as he's concerned about his patients or himself being identified.
People often ask me what it's like to work in A&E. Just like ER, I tell them, just less sex and more paperwork. I love the job. And why would I be doing this after 6 years? And I love the NHS. That's why I'm talking to you, to tell you what it's really like in our hospitals. And why morale is suffering despite the government's money and good intentions. Take the 4-hour target for A&E. A good idea, but it's had unintended consequences. Here's a recent example. An old lady with a broken hip had been with us for 3 hours and 55 minutes. The clock was ticking. She was still in pain, but giving her more morphine would have meant failing the 4-hour target. This is called a breach. If a patient breaches, the managers have to examine why. Too many patients breach and the NHS comes down on the hospital like a ton of bricks. We gave her the injection anyway, but the figures were fiddled by 20 minutes, so officially she stayed in the department for 3 hours and 59 minutes. Ridiculous. Perhaps if targets were used to identify where more resources were needed rather than punish failures, patient care might be improved. But this way the government can say that everything's lovely-jubbly. And the pressure on A&E is only getting worse with the changes in the GP out-of-hours service. A nursing home called me recently about an old man with a chest infection. All he needed was a course of antibiotics, but the GP cover was too busy to treat him in the home. So he ended up in an ambulance, then in A&E, and ultimately in a distressed state. It may be an exciting place to work, but it's no fun for a man with dementia, and it was all unnecessary. My title may say doctor, but once the night shift starts, I'm part bouncer, part social worker. Now, I'm not self-righteous or pious. I love a good drink. But too often I end up dealing with the consequences of our binge drinking culture. On my last night shift, 5 of our precious ward beds were taken up by drunks who we had to monitor to make sure they didn't choke. One 17-year-old girl was so paralytic she didn't seem to mind the puke in her hair or to realise that she'd wet herself. These are your taxes paying for her overindulgence. Isn't it time we put a hypothecated tax on booze to pay for the impact that alcohol has on A&Es? And while we're at it, let's change the targets. Give A&E doctors 6 hours to sort out patients. Let's get more senior doctors on the shop floor so that patients get the best treatment straight away. And let's stop the downgrading of A&Es until we get a proper review.
That was Dr. Nick Edwards, played, of course, as we said, by an actor.